Hey guys, what's up? It's Joe with J Blake Photo, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the specs from the new mirrorless camera that's going to be coming from Canon, the Canon M50 Mark II. Real quick, if you like videos about cameras, gear, photography, videography, editing, GoPros, drones, all that kind of stuff, go ahead and hit the like button. Hitting that thumbs up button tells YouTube that I'm making the right content for you and that I should continue making these types of videos. It also helps get my videos out to more people. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and go ahead and click the bell so that you're alerted when I make new videos. I set a goal for myself to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2020. I'm real close, so if you could help me out there, I would really appreciate it. And if you're into stills photography and you're on Instagram, go ahead and find me over there. I am at JBlakePhoto, where I am posting photos from some of my recent trips, as well as some of the fun projects that I've been working on, many of which are featured here on the channel. All right, enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into the specs that we have. So I want to talk about the specs for the Canon M50 Mark II mirrorless camera, as well as compare it to the previous version, the Mark I, and some of the cameras that it's going to be competing against in the market right now. So the Canon M50 Mark I was a 24.1 megapixel camera with a 2.36 million dot EVF. It had 143 autofocus points with dual pixel autofocus. That's the Canon branded super high quality focusing system that you'll find in most of their cameras. It included face tracking, as well as zone autofocus and point autofocus. It had an APS-C crop size sensor, about 26 millimeters, that would go up to a max ISO of 51,200 and can shoot at up to 10 frames per second, depending of course on the autofocus mode. On the video side of things, the M50 Mark I could do 4K up to 24 frames per second, and it did have a slow-mo mode of 120 frames per second, although that was only available at 720p, similar to the EOS R that I'm shooting on right now, which also has that 120 mode in 720p. Had a battery rated for about 235 shots, and it had a weight of 354 grams. That is super, super lightweight, which is one of the big advantages of these small bodies with these crop sensors. And price-wise, right now you can pick one up for $649 in the US. All right, so let's go ahead and compare that, the Mark I, to now what we're seeing from the Mark II. The Mark II is going to be coming with a larger 32.5 megapixel CMOS APS-C sensor, so still that smaller cropped sensor. But it looks like they're going to be pairing it with the Digic X or some variant of the Digic X very similar to what is in the Canon EOS R5 and R6, as well as the recently released 1DX Mark III. This new sensor is also going to be coming with dual pixel autofocus version 2 or DPAF2 with eye tracking focus, face tracking focus. It's got all of those advanced algorithms to be able to identify subjects and keep them tracked. This is the same technology that we've seen in the R5 and the R6, and while I shoot with the Canon EOS R, shooters that have switched from the R to the R5 or 6 have seen a huge improvement in tracking capability with the R6 and the R5 over previous versions of the EOS R mirrorless and DSLR cameras with dual pixel autofocus. Here's where the specs get super fun. This is going to be shooting at 14 frames per second, and I believe that that is going to be with the electronic shutter. It's also going to be coming with an EVF very similar to what we have on the EOS R6, so no huge improvements there. That was not a revolutionary EVF by any means, but it will have the standard 3-inch vari-angle display with the 1 million dot resolution. The sensor will also not be coming with IBIS, but at the price point segment that this thing is going for, I kind of understand. It will, however, on the video side be shooting 4K 60 without a crop. Now I say without a crop, but also understand that this is an APS-C size sensor, so if you're putting full-size lenses using an adapter on there, you are going to get a 1.6 crop. But if you're using native lenses or EFS lenses, you won't experience a crop. And this camera will be shooting to one single SD card slot. Again, for the size and the price and the segment, this is not a surprise. Now there's no mention in the specs that I have of a slow-mo mode. Though I would assume, considering the fact that it's going to have the Digic X, that it will in fact have at least 1080p HD, full HD, at 120 frames per second. So now looking at the difference between these two cameras, the M50 Mark II is definitely an improvement over the M50 Mark I. This is a big step up in quality. We're definitely seeing some of that technology that we have in the super high-end flagship Canon cameras come down. Dual pixel autofocus 2, the Digic X processor, the fast speed. Really excited to be seeing some of these features making their way down into the entry-level cameras, even if it is the M line. So now let's take a look at this camera and compare it to its competitors. These are the cameras that come holiday season, coming up here real soon, you're going to be deciding, do I get the Canon M50 Mark II, or do I get the Z50? Do I get maybe the A6100, right? There's a couple of different options out there from other manufacturers. I'm gonna focus on those two cameras for right now because I feel that spec for spec and also price point wise, they are the closest competitors to this camera. So with the Nikon Z50, that's coming with the Z mount in a 20 megapixel sensor with a 2.36 million dot EVF, also OLED, and Nikon's 209 AF tracking points with face detect and tracking autofocus. Nikon also has IAF in this camera with a frame rate of around 11 frames per second and a max ISO of 51,200. So that's it on the still shooter side. On the video side, the Z50 is coming in with 4K at 30 frames per second at 30p, as well as a 1080p slow-mo mode at 120 frames per second, and a single UHS-1 card slot. Where the competition really gets interesting here is in the much higher resolution on the M50, though that may hurt it in low light situations. And the fact that it's going to be coming with the dual pixel autofocus 2 kind of flagship autofocus system from Canon, whereas the Z series really has been, it's been known for somewhat lackluster autofocus performance. Also, that price at $859 is definitely not super competitive for what it's offering considering the other options that are out there. And one of those options is the Sony a6100. So moving on to the Sony option, it has the E-mount, it has a 24 megapixel sensor as well as a 1.44, really small EVF, much smaller than the others, although this is a smaller body camera in the 6000 series. Though it does pack a whopping 425 autofocus points with face and eye autofocus detection, that same 11 frames per second shooting as the Nikon, and a max ISO of 32,000. On the video side, you do have 4K at 30 frames per second, but it is actually a downscaled sample from 6K, so you get better quality video out of this camera. And again, 1080p at 120 frames per second. It has that 1080 full HD slow-mo mode and a single UHS-1 card slot. And this camera's coming in at right now $749 MSRP. So comparing it to the previous model, the M50 Mark II versus the M50 Mark I, as well as its competitors, and that previous model, the Mark I, was really well received. I know a lot of people like that camera. I have friends and family that bought that camera. It was really great at that price point. But looking at all of that, I feel that this is a very, very compelling release from Canon. And it should be a great option for anyone getting their first interchangeable lens camera, or maybe even a second camera for your prosumer, online solo video shooter. The one thing to notice here is that both Sony and Nikon are presenting their versions of this line, of this segment, with the same mount as their professional grade. So the Sony a6100 and all of that series, all coming with the E-mount, and the Z50 coming with the same Z mount that the Z6 and Z7 have. That's a big deal. It means that these cameras are all a part of an ecosystem. But Canon's is a little different. So look, Canon, what's the deal? Are we going to split the segment by mount? I think we all know that that doesn't really make any sense. You want consumers to buy your cameras and your lenses, and then eventually upgrade to better lenses or better cameras, but be able to use them interchangeably to lock them into the system. If it's time for us to buy a new camera body and we can't easily take our lenses to the next level, then we're going to look at new lenses too. And if we're looking at new lenses and new bodies, well then we might as well look at other brands and other systems, other ecosystems outside of Canon. That's not what you want. That's not good business. It's not good for you and it's not good for your customers. So let's just cut to it. We love these small, inexpensive, lightweight APS-C cameras. We understand that between $600 and $800, we're not going to get IBIS, we're not going to get 8K, we're not going to get 4K at 120. It's okay. So just give us this camera with an RF mount and give us some RF lenses for crop sensors. Lenses that are light and cheap but do the job. They might not be 1.2L primes or f2 zooms, but that new STM lens, that 24 to 105 f4 to 7.1 STM for $399, that's what I'm talking about. If you had a camera like that took lenses like that, I'd probably own one. I'd use it as a less expensive B camera or something to take with me when I need something super lightweight. And I'd recommend it to my viewers, to my friends, and to my family. Except I don't know where the M mount is going. So that's it. What do you think? Is Canon making a huge mistake continuing on with the M line? Are these specs the kind of specs that are going to get you to go out and buy this camera? Do you already have the M50 Mark I? And do you plan on upgrading? Let me know down in the comments. I'm really curious to know what your application would be for a camera like this, especially considering the fact that at the price points that Canon is probably going to be putting it at, it's going to be great for the market. While you're letting me know down in the comments, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Like I said, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and I'd really appreciate your help doing that. Go and hit the bell so you know when I make new videos. And check me out on Instagram, @jblakePhoto, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.